Hey YouTube, it's Jordan with the Getting Bit Fishing Team, the official fishing team of Seven Rivers Marine, Ohio River Outdoors, Jan Dills, Attorneys at Law, and Armstrong Business Solutions. And today we want to talk to you about one of the best ways to catch fish out there, and honestly one of the most fun ways to get into catching fish, and that's squarebill fishing. So in one of our previous videos, we discussed a little bit about square bills for new bass anglers. This video is intended for anybody that has been bass fishing, either a new angler or somebody who's been doing this for a long time. So don't tune out thinking this is just an amateur video. I'm going to dive into as much as I can do in 10 to 12 minutes. Also not trying to waste everybody's time. So when it comes to square bill fishing, you have a lot of different options out there as far as brands, movements, what they do, the tightness of the wobble, and we'll get into a lot of that here in a little bit. And don't think that I'm sponsored by Strike King. The Getting Bit Fishing Team is in no way endorsed by any brand that you see sitting here today, except for Ohio River Outdoors here in the background where we're getting all these baits from. The reason that I've chosen the KVD square bills is just my personal choice. It's what I use the most, so it's the one I feel the most comfortable talking to you about. Whenever it comes to the Cigar and VizX, again, that's just the line I use, and if I'm going to give you guys an honest opinion of how I do things, I got to use what I'm going to use. Don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people that use Rapala and other square bills out there, as well as other fluorocarbons. They all work great. But for square bill fishing, the Lure Lock tackle boxes, there's no better way to go. They have a sticky material on the bottom. You don't get your baits all tangled up. They are worth every single penny. That's the only thing I'm endorsing really here today brand-wise. Again, I'm not sponsored by Lure Lock. I just love their product. It's great. It keeps everything from being a mess. So without wasting a whole lot of everybody else's time here, what are we going to talk about? Well, when you're picking your square bill, obviously you have smaller options. You have deeper diving options. You have slightly larger options. You have a thousand different colors you can choose from. And then you have your line selection you got to make, as well as your rod and reel. So what are you going to use? I don't have a rod and reel here with me today. I haven't set one out, but I will say when it comes to your rod and reel combination, personally, I use a 7-foot, 7-1 medium, even medium light, fast action tip rod. You really want to be able to zing them out there. If you're a shorter person, you don't have as much of a wingspan, you can back down to a 6-8, but you still want to keep that medium light, fast action tip. That is where the real trick is. Honestly, the longer you go with your rod, though, the further you're going to be able to cast it out. However, the shorter you go with your rod, the more accurately you're going to be able to cast your square bill. I will say, most of the time, I do not try to tell people to go expensive, but with lighter square bills, honestly, being able to invest a little bit more money in your rod and even your reel, it's really worth it. It helps get some of those lighter baits out there at a better distance, but it's still doable without it. For years before I had a lot of the equipment that I have now, I used ugly sticks from Walmart, and I was still able to make this work. I just want to let you know it is easier with better equipment. Not even better equipment, just higher end equipment. So now that we figured out the rod and reel that we're going to use, what kind of line are we going to use? It doesn't have to be Cigar like I have here, but you're going to want to use an 8-pound test or a 10-pound test line. When it comes to square bill fishing, in my opinion, along with a lot of other anglers that I talk to, the lighter the line, the more natural your square bill is going to look in the water. It's a little bit more sensitive, and it's a lot easier to get those lighter baits out with a little bit lighter of a line. Set your drag a little bit looser. You don't want to take a chance of losing the fish. You know, you're using a lighter line. Don't be scared to fight the fish in. Honestly, over the last couple of years, whenever I realized that I don't have to worry about hearing that drag run, especially on my bait casters, as long as you have good sharp hooks and you have a good hook set, don't be scared to let that drag run with it. Try to get it in, but use a lighter line. I promise you, you're going to get a better hookup ratio. You're going to get more bites with a lighter line with square bills. Whenever it comes to deeper diving versus shallower diving, that's obvious as to where you're fishing at, to what the depth is. You always want to fish as deep or You want your bait to go as deep or deeper than what your intended target is. So if you're fishing a sandy area or a grassy area or something like that, you either want to be ticking the sand, ticking the rocks, ticking the tops of the grass. You don't have to drag through the grass, but tipping the tops of those grass, especially on grass edges, is a great way to catch fish. But with squarebills, it's all about hitting the cover underneath and getting that really erratic action. Some other things you can do other than trying to hit rocks and tick the tops of grass, it's your retrieve. So while you're retrieving this bait, a lot of times I'll go with a medium retrieve. I usually use a 7:1 gear ratio reel, and while I'm reeling it in, on top of trying to get the sporadic hits and bumps off of things, sometimes I'll pause it. A lot of times, those bass will be swimming right behind this bait, just kind of curious about what's going on. As soon as that abrupt stop happens, boom, out of curiosity, out of reaction, you get that bite that you otherwise wouldn't have got. Don't be scared to pause it. But here's some real juice. So last year at Chautauqua, while we were fishing offshore in a really shallow hump, I found that I started getting a lot of bites by not only doing the pause, but I would pump my squarebill while I was pulling it through the water column. So in my mind, I imagine it going through the water column like this, hitting stuff, backing off. And I got so many bites that I've never gotten before. And then I applied that to the Ohio River. You heard me correctly. I applied that to the Ohio River, and I've caught tons of smallmouth doing the same thing there. Anywhere that I go squarebill fishing now, that is a technique that I will add to it. I'm not saying it always works, but it works great. Another one, go fast, pause, fast, pause, fast, pause. Or you can just try burning it through the gravel. I mean, you really have to fish the moment. You have to figure out what those fish want. But everything I just said there is great techniques to start trying new squarebill tactics for you. Another thing, replacing the hooks. So I will say with the KVD hooks or with the KVD squarebills, they come, in my opinion, hook ready. But I have heard of a lot of people switching out the hooks. It's not a bad idea, y'all. It really isn't. A lot of times the manufacturers are going to have a cheaper hook in there. If you're competitive bass fishing and there's money on the line or you're looking for that trophy, replace your hooks. If you're using something other than KVD, and I'm not saying this because they're a lesser brand. Honestly, I think Rapala is a great brand. But don't replace your hooks. A lot of people do it, and there's a just cause behind it. When it comes to color selection, this is where it gets really hard for a lot of people because there's so many different colors out there. Don't get confused by it. Honestly, a black and pearl color, a black and white color, sexy shad or shad colors, even some of your more dull colors. I keep it pretty simple. Honestly, I really wouldn't even throw this color. These are all the colors you're going to see me use most of the time. Summertime, I love sexy shad. Anytime I'm fishing for smallmouth, I love chartreuse. Countrywide, chartreuse will catch smallmouth. Your brighter days, this is a really good one. I'm not saying I don't use a few other colors, but don't let the color selection confuse you. Try to stay with your shads, try to stay with your chartreuses, your black and whites, and then early in the year before the spawn, red and blacks work great as well. I don't really think I have any more information for you guys on squarebills. I really hope everybody has enjoyed this today. I really hope that we found this useful. And as always, I want to end this by saying, God bless America. God bless our troops and our veterans. Thank you guys for serving our country. Everybody have a good day. We look forward to seeing you soon.